Hello everyone, we're going to be going over weekly review week 5. So if we look at question number 1, it says, a teacher selects two different numbers, P and Q, that states P plus Q, so adding those together equals 0. Which statement could be true about these two numbers? So we're going to go through and answer A, B, C, or D, and we're going to give each value, P or Q, a number. So if we look at A, it says both numbers are positive. So let's give the smallest positive number we could, 1 plus the smallest number we could. Both 1 and 1 are positive. 1 plus 1 equals 2. Could my numbers ever equal 0? No, not if they're positive. So what about if they're both negative? What if I do the smallest two negative numbers? -1 plus -1 equals, we're on our number line, we're at -1. If we're adding a negative, we're going in this direction. So that's adding -1 and we end up at -2. Does that equal 0? Nope. Next is one number is 0 and the other is positive. Okay, so let's make P 0. Plus, let's do our smallest positive number, 1, and I get 1. That doesn't seem to work, but the number is 0 and my other number is positive. Let's check if I do one number is 1 plus 0. And what do I get? Still 1. So the number is 0 and the other is positive. That does not work. What about one number is positive and the other is negative? So I'm going to draw a number line and I'm going to say this is 0 and I'm going to go, this is 1 and this is -1. So what if I do -1 plus 1? So I start at -1. One number is positive. Oh, I guess let's make it 1 plus -1. But we know the order does not matter when multiplication or addition. So 1 plus -1, so I'm at 1. Adding a negative is going to the left. I'm at 0. So if I have one number positive and one number negative, those two numbers can add up to equal 0. We also know that -1 and 1 are the same distance away from 0. So if I were to do 2 and -2, these are still the same distance away from 0. So I know that if I do 2 plus -2, I would still end up at 0, 2, 1, 2. I'm at 0. Now let's look at number 2. It says the temperature yesterday in Perrysburg was -6 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, I want to first draw a thermometer, and in Perrysburg it was -6. It says the temperature today is 6 degrees warmer. So that should indicate if I see 6 degrees warmer, that means it increased by 6 degrees. Warmer and 6 degrees. So warmer is positive and then 6. So now I need to start where it was. So yesterday it was at -6 and I need to go up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I end up at 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I end up at 0. So what is the temperature today? The temperature is 0. The equation I could have used to represent that is, what was my starting temperature? -6. And if it's 6 degrees warmer, that means I'm adding 6 to it. And -6 plus 6 equals 0. I saw a lot of people put their answer as 6. The only way this answer would be 6 is if you did not draw your number line, you might have gotten confused that you were going up 6. And you could have went up 12, but it says 6 degrees warmer. It doesn't say the temperature is 6 degrees. It says it's getting 6 degrees warmer. Now let's look at number 3. It says, I'm going to say Kenji. Kenji sees a cardboard box that is made using 30% recycled material. The empty box weighs 22 ounces. which equation can Kenji use to calculate the amount of recycled material in the box? So first of all, that equation that I'm going to use, that I use for all of my percents, is part equals percent times whole. And my whole is my OG value as well. So it says, Kenji uses a cardboard box that is made using 30% recycled material. Right off the bat, I know that I can put my 30% here. It says the empty box weighs 22 ounces. Which equation can be used to calculate the amount of recycled material? So I am trying to figure out the amount of recycled material in... Sorry guys, someone came in to ask a question. So the question is asking me, which equation can Kenji use to calculate the amount of recycled materials? So if I'm looking for the amount of recycled materials, that means that is part of my box. That is not my entire box. So I know I'm going to have X over here, or they tell us to use the variable R. So I'm going to put R over here. Now times my whole. So my whole weight of my empty box, the empty box weighs, my whole weight there is 22 pounds or ounces. So I'm going to look over here, and A has my 30% over here. We know right off the bat that that one is incorrect. This has 30% in the correct spot. This, my 30% is not in the correct spot. Now I have 30% times 22 equals R. So this one says divided by. We did not do any division, so I know that one is incorrect. And then I can finally double check. 22 times 30 equals R. So my final answer should be D. Now let's look at question number 4. Question 4 says 4 students estimate how many marbles would fill a fishbowl. Their estimates are listed in the table. The fishbowl holds 120 marbles. Which student has a less than 15% error in their estimate? So first of all, I'm looking at 4 different people, so I'm probably going to need 4 different equations. I want to figure out who has less than a 15% error in their estimate. But the only information I'm given is what they estimated, which Nora estimated 88 marbles, and what the actual value was, which the actual value is 120 marbles. If I am trying to solve for error, how do I find the error between 120 and 88? I would need to do 120 minus 88. Then I would type in 120 minus 88, and I end up with 32. So now, looking at Nora's, I know that Nora, her part or her error was 32 equals, I don't know what the percent error is, that's what I'm trying to figure out, times my actual value, because the equation I'm using is part equals percent times whole, and my part is that difference between estimate and actual, and my whole is my actual value. So then I multiply it by my actual value, which is 120. I need to isolate that variable, so that means divide both sides by 120. And then I'm going to do 32 divided by 120, and I get 0.26 repeating equals P. Now, what does my P stand for? This P right here is my percent, and that's not in percent form. So I need to multiply that answer by 100, multiply it by 100 in order to get my percent of 26% error. So I know Nora had a 26% error. Now, I want to do that for every single person. So we're going to keep going, and let's figure out what my percent error is for Kim. So I'm going to do my estimated equals 100. My actual was 120. Then I need to find the difference between these two to figure out the error. So I need to do 120 minus 100, and I get 20. Now I can finally plug it into that equation. 20 equals percent times my actual value, which is 120. Then I'm doing the same thing. I need to divide both sides by 120. Then I get 20 divided by 120 is 0.6 or 0.16 equals P. And last but not least, I need to get it into percent form, and I end up with 16%. So Kim's is 16%. Let's keep going and let's solve for Benito. Benito he estimated 16 marbles, and the actual was 120. First of all, we should already be able to tell that that estimated or that percent error is going to be way larger than 15%, but let's still double check. I need to find the difference between these to figure out my error. So I need to do 120 minus 16, and I get 104. Then I can plug that into my equation. 104 equals percent times my actual value. Divide both sides by 120. 104 divided by 120 is 0.86 equals my P. And then I need to multiply by that by 100. So I get 86%. So Benito has an 86% error. And last but not least, let's do Eamon. So Eamon's, maybe I should separate these so you guys, hopefully this helps a little bit. Okay, and last but not least, I need to do Eamon. Eamon's his estimated value was 130, and his actual value was 120. So I need to figure out the difference between these. So I need to do 130 minus 120 to get my part, and that gets 10 equals my percent times my actual value of 120. Now I need to isolate my variable by dividing both sides, by 120. 10 divided by 120 gives me 0.083 equals P. Now I need to get that in percent form, multiplied by 100, I get 8.3%. So Eamon's is 8.3%. Now that I've calculated all of these errors, let's figure out which one has less than a 15% error. Nora has 26. 26% is greater than 15%, so Nora does not work. Kim is 16. That's greater than 15. Benito is 86, way larger. And Eamon is 8.3%, which is smaller than 15%, which is less. And last but not least, let's look at question 5. It says Pete and Tegan each put the same amount of money in a new bank account. Tegan's account earns 2.75% simple interest, and she earned $2.20 in interest after 1 year. Pete's account earns 5% simple interest. How much interest did Pete's account earn after 1 year? So the most important thing here is it says Pete and Tegan each put the same amount of money in a new bank account. So I am given Tegan earns 2.75%. simple interest, and she earned $220 in interest. So the first thing I need to do is think about what is that interest equation. So I'm going to do interest amount equals interest rate times my principal. So let's figure out for Tegan, because I'm given all the information for Tegan. So let's figure out Tegan. I am trying to figure out his interest amount. I'm trying to figure out his principal. I'm given his interest amount. His interest amount is $2.20, and his rate is 2.75% times my principal. Your principal is your total money, whether that's deposited or whether that is taken out. So I'm trying to figure out my principal. I'm going to give it the variable x. So I need to isolate my variable by dividing both sides by 2.75%. I get $2.20 divided by 2.75. Do not forget your percent sign. And I get 80 equals my principal. Now, let's look at Pete. I just figured out that 80 is the principal, and this says that they have the same amount of money that they put into their bank. So I know that they both put in $80, so I can use that equation. Let's look at Pete. And Pete puts in my interest amount. I don't know. I know that Pete gets, so interest amount, I don't know, 5% interest rate times my principal, and the amount of money they put down both was $80. Now, I need to do 5% times 80, which gives us 4. Connecting that back to our equation, your x was for your interest amount, so Pete earns $4 in interest. Okay, let me know if you guys have any questions, or let Miss Mikey know if you have any questions. Other than that, have a great day.